Let's get back into some Four Nations discussion, but this time talking about Team USA. Mike Sullivan. It's going to be a big week for him. We talk about Raquel, the opportunity that he's getting on the ice. We talk about Erik Karlsson and representing his country once again. We talk, of course, ad nauseum about Sidney Crosby, but it's a very big opportunity for Mike Sullivan as the head coach of Team USA, not just when it comes to the tournament, which we'll talk about here in a couple minutes, but it's his first chance to coach his son-in-law. This is a story that we don't get to see very often. Obviously, for those who don't know, Charlie McAvoy is Mike Sullivan's son-in-law. And when asked about the opportunity that's in front of Sullivan and McAvoy, Sullivan told NHL.com, quote, "We're going to go about it the way we always go about our jobs. He's going to compete on the ice. I'm going to coach the team to the best of my ability, but to have the opportunity to coach my son-in-law in an event like this someday, I think we'll look back on it and smile with just having the opportunity to work together in that aspect." So Mike Sullivan, obviously a very interesting, very cool story coming out of this. USA opens up their Four Nations against Finland. Jordan, let's start with you. I mean, you see this story and you see the opportunity for Sullivan, not just to coach, his son-in-law and Charlie McAvoy, but to coach probably one of and Mike Eruzione said it earlier today, the most talented Team USA that we have ever seen. It's a crazy opportunity and one that it seems like could highlight Mike Sullivan as what most people outside of Pittsburgh look at him as is one of the best coaches in the NHL.
I think it is a really good opportunity in so many ways. And, it is cool for him to be able to work so closely with his son-in-law, because you would imagine he's not seeing much of Charlie McAvoy. They're both off doing their own things, taking these jobs that take them to all these different cities. They don't get to spend a lot of time together. So this is going to be very intense time that they're with each other and that they're working together. So that's got to be really cool. But I also feel like, over the course of the last handful of years, Pittsburgh's feelings about Sully have kind of taken a bit of a nosedive because of the lack of playoff series wins, honestly. And there's a lot of chatter a lot of the time around this city because people are very opinionated about sports and about our teams and who is leading the teams. And I think that has to be somewhere in the back of Sully's mind as he's preparing to coach this roster that is just so star-studded. He's coaching his son-in-law, but he's also coaching Austin Matthews. It's wild. It's going to be so fun to watch. And it will be interesting because how often do we see coaches in positions with teams for any extended period of time where they kind of stop finding success and then they go on, like Paul Maurice, to have tremendous success in a fresh environment? I feel like this could be a really good opportunity for Sully to maybe not redefine himself, but sort of rediscover what made him such a good coach in the first place, because he's going to have these fresh faces in this fresh environment. And hopefully that'll maybe, I don't know, rework the spark in him to kind of bring that back to Pittsburgh with him, because it seemed a little bit like he's settled in his position here and he's not as quick to make changes to the roster when they need to be made. And he was doing that left and right whenever he first got here in end of 2015. So I think this probably could also just be really great for his confidence, because he's also been dealing with a lot of, subpar rosters with the Penguins. So to be able to go in and represent the United States in this capacity as the coach, I'm excited and hopeful that we'll see him succeed in this role, because he's a likable guy and he's a great coach. And I think that it might also really be good for Penguins fans to see him be a good coach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's going to be that opportunity for them, because as Penguins fans, there's always a weird, divide in your head when international play comes around, because through the history of the Penguins, or at least the relatively recent history, the best players have always been Canadian or Czech for Yager's sake. Never really has an American in the Penguins organization stood out as the team's best player. So when these international tournaments roll around, the patriotism in you kind of, wants you to root for Team USA. But then you look at the lineup and you realize it's full of a bunch of players you don't really, not that you don't know, but they're not necessarily the players you're always cheering for, which is why every time, at least I watch international hockey, I have this little sense of I want Team Canada to do well because Crosby's there, because Lemieux was there, because so many other players like that always were represented by Team Canada. For what it's worth to me, Russia would always get a good boost in my head, at least because of Malkin's connection back when they were involved in everything. Now it is time for Penguins fans to look at Team USA and actually have something to back there. For a while it was Jake Gensel until NHL players didn't have international play.
Yeah.
And now they're given a new opportunity with Mike Sullivan behind the bench. They can still root for Gensel if they'd like. But I feel like there will be a new sort of patriotism unlocked for Penguins fans that can back Mike Sullivan again with a very good team. But if things fall apart, they've had this situation before, though.
Mm-hmm.
Lest we forget Dan Bilesma and Sochi. So
yeah,
as long as something like that doesn't happen again, there should be this level of fanfare for Sullivan from Pittsburgh and Team USA.
Two things. One, I would not put it past a portion of this fan base to actively root against the United States simply because Mike Sullivan's there. You said that it might reinvigorate some people's patriotism. It might send it down the toilet for some of the fan base, because they might be like, well, I don't want to see Sully. Come on. We've been bashed on this guy for 3 years, but I digress to that point. Secondly, what you were talking there, it's just kind of the realization of, oh yeah, Jake Gensel is probably the best American-born player the Penguins have had in Crosby's career. And his entire Penguins career, there was 0 best-on-best tournaments. The last one was 2016 in the World Cup. Gensel comes onto the scene in 2017, has an entire career in Pittsburgh, and then it takes him getting traded and then signing in Tampa Bay for him to get that opportunity to play for Team USA. So again, if you're on the fence because you have mixed feelings about Mike Sullivan, you can go root for Jake Gensel because he did so much for Pittsburgh, and this is his first chance and his first kick at the can. Jeff, I'll let you have the floor here because you didn't get to respond to this yet.
I'm just enjoying listening to the podcast unfold. I still remember listening to Tip of the Ice-Burgh before we launched Fly Penguins Fly when I was still living out in Jersey City. I launched it from the attic in that house. So it's just cool for me to get to be here and be part of this community with you guys. Yeah. Mike's maybe got a couple of Sully's got a couple of kids on the ice. There's inevitably going to be a time when the Austin Matthews line is out there and Jack Hughes and Jake Gensel are buzzing around, probably the heaviest shot in the NHL in number 34 from Toronto. But also on the ice might be that Werenski and McAvoy pairing. So Gensel being a baby pen that essentially made the journey from Wilkes up to Pittsburgh with Mike, following that parking lot interview. That was the first taste of Mike Sullivan most Penguins fans got from Mike. Forgive me, the reporter, I can almost remember their name, who got the piece, the little scoop on Mike before he made his way to Pittsburgh that day. But he's going to have all kinds of storylines going. Like you said, it's kind of cool for me, even just looking at the fourth line and somebody who's been a bane of our existence in Brock Nelson, but indisputably a great player and a good, example for a lot of folks in the league. So it's a deep team. It's a cool team. Another Pittsburgh guy and JT Miller out there for Team USA. Just looking up and down the lineup.
Trocheck as well.
Oh yeah, Vince Trocheck. Thanks. Oh, my gosh, I have this sort of like Rangers fingers up. But also, Jordan, you and I talked a lot about the Wild as kind of our side team, our side piece team, as in one of our episodes to root for in the Western Conference. Now that the Penguins are essentially out of the playoff, we have so many cool players from the Wild to root for, not the least of which being Brock Faber. And last night watching Gustafsson hold the fort down in the absence of Jacob Markstrom. So many storylines. Team USA, Mike Sullivan, I root for the guy. I like to imagine these post-Thanksgiving dinner cigar or Guinness moments that probably or almost certainly happen there. A couple of Boston University Terriers sharing stories about the alma mater, both having played in the NHL, both having gone to school at the same place. Was it Charlie McAvoy in the old commercial like a few seasons back that was like, "I'm Charlie McAvoy. Do you need ice time?" Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one. I don't know if either of you guys do.
It was like on NHL Network. "Hi, I'm Charlie McAvoy. Are you looking for ice time?" And when he couldn't have had less
Personality
in it, but he's so great on the ice. I got to say the Bruins team, talk about tangents. I never do them, but I'm doing one right now. Anybody? It's funny. I do tangents all the time. A lot of great personalities in recent years in Boston. I've actually become a big Brad Marchand fan in spite of originally hating him as like a sort of a face licker. If this were an Alien script, he'd be not the face sucker, but the face licker. But Charlie McAvoy, David Pastrnak, obviously one of the best personalities in the league. Well, not going to be in this tournament, kicking it back over to whoever wants to save me from my own self. Right now.
You're good. You can enjoy Brad Marchand when he's playing for a different team before ahead of the trade deadline. So
That's
don't
right.
worry about it.
Whoa.